One of the things that keeps children safe more than anything else and moderates their behaviour is when they become, or they feel accepted by their community. When they become a useful member of that community, it's a bonus. These things generally start from later on. If a child finds or feels that they are appreciated and acknowledged for what they're trying to do, the good that they're trying to do, they will respond to that and take pride in themselves. The bad thing that we're facing now is that a lot of the children are discredited, devalued and humiliated by the social media and the broadcast media, who tell them that they're worthless because they're white, and they're disrespected because their parents were colonialists and slave owners. These things are just not true. Owning a slave was illegal in the UK. Transporting them was different. That was under maritime law, it wasn't under British law. So it was the same maritime law that everybody else was abiding by, not just Britain. That's what allowed the trading, that's what allowed the transportation. Britain didn't need slaves. They'd no need for them whatsoever. They were very expensive and costly, and it was just a waste of time because they didn't chain anybody down, otherwise the person who chained you down would be put in jail. So all these things were given a Christian protection. The Christian values protected these slaves from ever going through any kind of hardship in this country. What they used instead was children. You think about it. In America, they needed people to work outdoors in the heat. In Britain, they needed somebody to work. We needed people who would work indoors, in amongst a lot of big, heavy, dangerous machinery. So for that reason, they used children. And a lot of the effects, there's a lot of history to it, but what they did was they destroyed the rural areas. They made it impossible to earn a living in the rural areas for different reasons. Ireland being the best example of this, where they were told to grow a crop that would feed the British Army, and that crop was potatoes. You could keep potatoes in peat for a long time, and that meant you could transport them abroad and you could feed your army abroad. And the people who owned the land had the land taken away from them, and they had to provide so many tons of potatoes as a rent to use the land. So when the potato blight went and took over the crop, the potato crop, these children and people starved to death. 1 million starved to death. There were actually 2 famines, but certainly the last one there they had, that was 1845. But the children were going abroad, and the children lost their parents, because it's always the first people to die are the old men. Then it gradually goes down and down and down until all you're finished with is the children. And round about in between that process, a lot of the children were given to the church, and the church would use them and sell them as slaves to industry. So we did have slaves, a hell of a lot more than black slaves. We had more children slaves. And that's why I'm sorry, but I'm thinking about my own ancestors when we talk about slavery. That's what comes into my mind, these children. I don't think anybody had even seen a black slave. There were traders, black traders, and there was a black Scottish clan, the Macduffs, children of the black people. They had their own clan. So I don't think there was much slavery going on, and certainly not in the UK, not with black people, not with adults, because they needed children. Anyway, but still the children are growing up with this, the colonisation and imperialism and all the rest of the stuff that they're teaching these children about how bad their ancestors were and how bad their people were. They don't want to live. Suicide is now the main cause of death for children from the age of 5 years old. They do not want to grow up in a world that hates them. And you look at everything that their parents ever did, they hated for it. And they can't get away with that. That's why kids are wanting to change their gender, because the men are always blamed for everything. And it's certainly a mitigating factor when they're going through all this manipulation and stuff with their own genitals. And Britain was the worst people for transitioning children to change gender. This is just appalling. But that's what life offers children. That's what Britain offers its children, white children today. A reputation for being aggressive, imperialist slave traders. So they don't want to live in a world like that. I'm sure nobody does. So they're hoping that they'll get rid of us by perpetuating these myths about white people.